We can't hear you. Should you sign off and sign back in?
Yeah.
An
auspicious start.
That never happens.
I know. God, how embarrassing is that? Not getting Zoom to work.
Okay. Oh, she got right back in.
Hello?
Yay!
I can hear you.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, Mabel, you have 1 minute to do your elevator pitch, and then we'll jump in with Q&As. We shared the LinkedIn, so the judges, I think you know, Aris, Brian, and Meg. They're all running their own companies, so they should have some good questions for you.
Perfect. All right, I'll go ahead and get started then.
Good.
So our goal at Zonloop is to keep you safe. Many people who prefer to run outside do not while traveling, simply because they do not know where it is safe to go. Young women in particular are constantly hyper-aware of the dangers associated with running alone. Zonloop offers a compelling solution, an app that generates safe running routes based on location input and desired distance to give you peace of mind to focus on what matters most. Like no other app on the market, Zonloop leverages big data and real user feedback to optimize your safety. We empower our users to simultaneously stay safe and explore. With Zonloop, you will never again wonder where to run or if you'll return home safely. Thank you.
Okay, judges, got some questions?
Mabel, you're first here, so you're going to be the. We have to figure out how to do this ourselves as well. But one thing that jumped out at me that I'd like to understand: how often you had some data, but how often are people running in unfamiliar areas? Obviously, over the past year, there's probably been less unfamiliar areas that people have been finding themselves in. But talk to me about the idea of a total addressable market here, how often this is happening, what that kind of user base would look like versus running in a familiar area.
Definitely. So this isn't something that you would use like when you're leaving your house where you know you're going to run 2 miles out and 2 miles back and you run it every day because you don't need an app to tell you that's safe. But anytime or you're on a work-related trip, which obviously isn't happening so much now, but one thing we looked at in the beginning was consultants, especially young female consultants who are traveling often and are typically a more active population, young and energetic, and they don't know anyone in the cities they're traveling to, so they're going out for a run if they want to, not knowing where to go. Given that no one is really traveling, I think our app still has some value because a lot of people before the pandemic would meet up to run in groups. They'd run with their friends or with a local community group, or some running stores have them. But when you take that away and you say, oh, go run 4 miles on your own, if you're just starting out running, you might not know where 4 miles is safe to go. So the biggest one is traveling. That could just be like you're on the other side of town or you're in a completely different city. And then the other one is hopefully more short term with COVID not being able to be in groups where you have a leader telling you which way to go run.
Cool. You use the line designed by women for women, which I love, but you kind of abandon that through the rest of the presentation. How do you affect that? What does that really mean when it comes to the opportunity on how is this sort of female focused here?
I think it is female focused in the sense that that's where we want to start. We know that you can't start by casting the broadest net possible and say this is for everyone, because nothing is for everyone. If you were to go for a run and I were to go for a run, even on the same street, I might feel more unsafe just because I am a young woman. And then there's always the stories in the back of my head. But I think that in the future, this could be a technology that more people use, but that line by women for women is kind of what makes it stand out, at least in the beginning, while we're building a compelling user base, because I don't foresee a 40-year-old man thinking, this is great. This is going to tell me where I can safely run.
I'd like the YouTube live audience to know I'm not a 40-year-old man.
No, I wasn't implying that
just
to you.
making sure here. Just making sure.
No, not you.
Could have been misinterpreted
in general.
there.
Yeah, you might be pushing 50, right?
Damn it, Meg. Yeah, no, thank you.
Mabel,
Hurtful.
this is such a cool tool. I definitely see the need for it, but I'd love to hear more about your go-to-market plans. How do you plan on getting it in front of all these women?
So we started this at a program called Code with Classy, which Carly Class, who's a supermodel and entrepreneur, started, and she has an incredible social media platform, and Code with Classy also has every connection possible and resource, it seems. They are closely partnered with Adidas, and Adidas Runtastic. So we've spoken to some of their engineers. So our plan is to launch it like on the most basic level, kind of grassroots word of mouth, and also tap into their resources. They've been really good about posting about our progress on the Code with Classy social media platforms, which have a lot of runners and a lot of young female runners on there as followers. And then also Carly Kloss has been excited to post about it and share it with her followers. So I think that is our biggest plan of attack. But beyond that, just kind of getting it in the App Store, getting it like telling people, doing maybe like some promotional partnership types of things, buying online ads. I know I get the same ads on Instagram and then they'll come up on Snapchat and then I'll see them on Facebook and I'm like, oh, maybe this is like a big product, but it's just because they're putting them everywhere I'm going. It's not because it actually is everywhere. So I think tapping into that is something that would also be really important to do.
Very cool.
What's the business case here? You talk about paying for advertisements and getting this out there. I know in the presentation you talk about getting acquired and adding this almost as a feature that's complementary, but pre-acquisition, what's the monetization opportunity long-term, short, medium, long-term? How are you thinking about monetizing your audience here?
Our main way is through the in-app advertisements through location-based brand and map pins, similar to Waze. We really don't want to have users pay for this service because that could just end up disenfranchising a lot of people. And it's something that I think would initially slow the growth of the app. So mostly the advertisements. We're also looking into possibly selling the data we collect to cities and not like personal data, but where people are running and where are safe to help them use that to inform like where they're going to build foot trails in parks and that type of thing, or where maybe a road needs more maintenance. We're not 100% sure about how exactly that will look, but that is another one of our options if the advertisements aren't bringing in enough revenue.
Great, Mabel, that was my question too. In addition, can you talk just a little bit about the product and how you foresee it or how it does generate the routes?
Yes, so we are coding it all in React Native using mostly JavaScript based. So it will be an algorithm that will look at the database, and we're thinking the best way to do that is to geofence a map with the different data from the different APIs to geofence it almost like a heat map if you've seen like Trulia or Zillow, which shows you like where the highest crime is, and then based on those thresholds, the algorithm will kind of work its way through the lowest crime thresholds possible within however many miles you want to go.
Can I ask one more? I know we're running out of time here. You talk about the aggregated safety data. Is that user generated? Is it proprietary? Are you getting that from feeds? Is it a combination? How are you aggregating that data?
It's both. So in the beginning, it's proprietary data like crime statistics and like traffic patterns and things like that. And then once we're having more users use the app, at the end of their run, they'll report like this area was well lit or things like that, or like there were bathroom stops. And so then that will also over time become another database that will then differentiate the app from something that could be easily replicated.
Okay, we're going to have to stop there. Thank you so much, Mabel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mabel.
Thanks, Mabel.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. I went to hit my leave button, so if I disappear, it's because I screwed up.
Bye, MJ.
Just
All right,
keep
so now
going
we're
on without me.
Charlie,
All right, Charlie with
ABG Design.
okay. Hey,
Good
Charlie,
afternoon.
welcome. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Okay, Charlie from ABG Design. We're not going to spend a lot of time doing introductions. We did give you the links. So we have our judges here, Brian, Aris, and Meg. And we're going to let you do your 1-minute pitch, and then they'll start asking you some questions.
Absolutely. ABG Design is an engineering startup focused on increasing precision, accuracy, and accessibility in design and manufacturing. Our team is composed of entrepreneurs, engineers, and enthusiasts that guide our problem-solving methods with over 15 years of relevant industry experience. Our current initiative, Notch, was born out of our own struggles as an automotive collegiate racing team. Cutting metal tubes for our welded buggy frame required time and precision that we didn't have, and outsourcing that work would cost us thousands of dollars. So we built our own solution. Using our prototype, we managed to cut the build time of our buggy from 3 months to just 3 days. After several iterations, we realized that Notch has an opportunity to empower engineers far beyond the university. With a product that is smaller, faster, more accurate, and more affordable than our competition, we see a range of users in an array of industries. We've spoken to potential customers in automotive racing, architecture, construction, and independent makerspaces, just to name a few. Critically, at just 1/10 of the cost of our competition, our product represents our mission to make fabrication more accessible, from students to professionals and everyone in between.
All right, judges, go ahead, jump right in there.
Yeah, you're talking about costs, so we'll probably jump around a lot. But did you have a chance to look at how much does it cost? Have you looked at that, and what are you ballparking?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked. We just finished our first prototype in December of 2020. That cost us $3,500. However, given that was our first prototype, we think we have some ways to bring that down to around $3,000, given a larger manufacturing scale. But what's critical is that all of the customers that we've spoken to in the SAE space have all voiced that they're more than willing to pay that price, up to around $10,000.
All right, so the thought here then is a $7,000 margin at scale with a price point then, or a price point somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 when selling it out, and you believe the cost is going to be around $3,000?
Essentially, yes. We're actually targeting a price to sell more close to $3,000 because we feel that that embodies our mission to make this a more accessible tool. And it also competes then against the hand tool sector in this tube cutting market, which are far less powerful, but around the same price and around the same size as our device.
I think you were saying something in the report that you're looking to sell about 10 units by the fall, and that the revenue from those units was gonna get you to 25,000 or something like that. With a $3,000 price point for your initial units, do you think you'll be able to sell them at the 10,000 mark?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
So in the report it says that customers will buy, and so I'm trying to figure out is did the price point change as far as what the customers are interested in buying it for? At scale, they could do it at 10,000. You can do it at 3,000, and scale it, you'll find customers for 10. But just at least in the beginning.
Right. That's a great question. In the beginning, we've already spoken to manufacturing partners that we have in and around Virginia that have all offered to manufacture at below that $3,000 mark, which would then give us that margin that can help us go to a higher amount that's more than just 10 units after that first batch.
Okay.
Charlie, what do you think your total addressable market is in the next year, 2 years?
Right now, our main focus is product testing with this first batch of customers. So that would be these SAE teams. It also involves the UVA school. We've spoken to Melissa Goldman. She wants to help us incorporate this product into the curriculum. Moving forward from there, we want to target the education sphere and automotive racing simultaneously. SAE is linked to these universities. And with UVA as a starting point, having that model school in the architecture section, as well as our own at-home Baja SAE and Formula SAE teams, we think that's going to be a great starting off point that we can jump from there.
Piggybacking off of that, Charlie, are you worried that the novice approach, you're kind of coming in, and I think it makes sense, you're coming in cheaper than professional tools, but with greater power than kind of what's available. But on that same longer term TAM question, are you worried that the novice approach will too narrowly define your market to sort of bring down that opportunity given the high costs of hardware here?
That's a really good question. The reason why we're targeting these groups is because we see them as avenues to the larger groups. So if you target education, you then have students that learn how to use this device, and moving into the professional sphere, they'll know how to use it. It's also affordable for a company to buy. It's a low stakes investment, and they'll have the expertise to use it in that field.
Okay, so you're gonna get users that are gonna graduate and are gonna pull you with them effectively because they know how to use it and they're gonna bring it in their next application or wherever they go.
That's correct. However, I should point out that even larger businesses with higher budgets that can afford these industrial machines that cost tens of thousands of dollars, Notch still poses benefits because of its smaller size. Those machines, while capable, can take up entire rooms. So a product that's 5% of the size and 4% of the weight is going to be invaluable to any institution that values space.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay, Madeline, do we have time for another question? Or are we out of time?
We have 2 minutes. So
Okay.
you have another question? Go for it.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie, one of the things, and I think I want to compliment you. I thought your business plan was really, really good here. One of the things I didn't totally get was some of the judging criteria just from this competition. How do you think about that idea of affordable loss, right? I know you guys are in college. I know you're kind of using it yourselves right now, but what have you been doing to kind of pull that together in a way that, if the 10 prototypes don't sell, you're kind of minimizing the opportunity and taking those learnings here?
I'm really glad you asked that question. With the prototype that we've already made, we've been practicing and refining lean design and manufacturing techniques. A lot of that comes from our expertise in motorsports, but it also comes from 3 of our members work in the professional fields of design consulting, engineering consulting, and AI. So we're taking those skills and we're applying it to this product. And regardless of how this first batch goes, we see it as an immense learning opportunity that either way, we need to take a step back and reevaluate the market. We're going to have the chance to do that. We're committed to this mission, and so we're more than capable of doing that, and we welcome any opportunity.
Cool. Thanks, Charlie. This was really good.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're all set.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Charlie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, and next we have,
Next, we have
Elizabeth.
Cotton, and we'll let Elizabeth in.
I think you actually say it.
Catone.
Catone? Oh, okay.
Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we were just trying to decide how do we say it? Catone. Catone.
Yes, Catone. It's French, but you can pronounce it however you wish.
Very classy. Very classy.
I guess this is where I confess that I don't speak French, but.
So Elizabeth, we have our judges here. I think we sent you the links. Aris, Brian, and Meg, all Darden alums, all running their own companies. So we're going to let you do your 1-minute pitch, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. So take it away.
Okay, great. I will keep it brief. I know that you guys have already read a lot about us, but Catone is the first fully sustainable luxury fashion brand with a focus on utilizing existing materials. Catone buys leftover and unused textiles directly from luxury textile mills, saving them from landfills and the incinerator. Our mission is to deliver high quality, fashion forward products that are ethically in line with the growing consumer demand for sustainable fashion. I know that you know this quite well, so I'd love to open up immediately to questions.
I'm going to jump in here because I run an on-demand logistics company.
Yes.
So I have a lot of questions.
Yes.
You talk about the direct consumer market that frees you up from minimum order quantities here. I don't totally understand that when you also talk about the idea of initially launching with 3 designs and then understanding if those don't sell. Can you kind of circle that square on how you're going to do made to order, minimum order quantity, and this idea of inventory?
Yes, so the minimum order quantity is kind of tied more to the wholesale model, which is how brands run now, because you are selling to brick and mortar or to e-commerce sites. So then moving directly into the DTC, I guess, model, what we're doing with the on-demand is we are able to list every style we're making and every fabric that we own before producing it. So we are able, I guess, to offer more than exists, which means that we are not we're not projecting, and so we are able to kind of pivot quickly. So if we list something for sale and it does not sell, I can then reuse that fabric and tweak something about the style, and then relist it.
Okay. Explain your raw material costs here. You kind of jump around, and I know that there's a lot of different ways that you can get this, right? But you're talking about buying excess fabric. You're talking about that being the highest cost, but if it's excess fabric that's going to go unused, I don't really understand, other than maybe it's really high quality fabric, and so there's still, even at a remainder price, it's still very high. Can you help me kind of understand the raw material costs of your primary kind of cost of goods sold here?
Yes. So our raw material is the highest cost right now because we don't have like the leverage of being in a big brand to get better deals right now. The mills that have agreed to work with us are selling it almost at the same price as it was originally, which as an entry, I'm kind of accepting a lower margin to get in the door to make a better deal later. So our cost of goods sold right now averages around $78 per style, but something that is more expensive to make and more expensive material wise, like a blazer, is being subsidized by something like a dress or a top. So we're hitting like a 44% margin on a blazer and like up to 67% on a dress, which is kind of giving us like we're averaging out at an industry standard margin still with this high textile cost.
Okay, last question, then I'll shut up here. Are you going to be using, so the greenwashing issue that's sort of there, how are you thinking about the materials that you are also going to buy? So are you going to be buying virgin cotton here? Are you going to be focusing on upcycle? Like, are you upcycling? Are you taking finished goods and deconstructing them? Like, how are you thinking about that to kind of really nail that sustainability mission that's core to the idea here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have worked with recycled materials, eco materials before, and there still is an inherent waste. The production of new materials creates carbon no matter what. So we are using only materials which are left over that already exist. So we aren't using virgin cotton or anything of that matter. We are also using leftover trims and notions. So I was able to source existing like leftover zippers, for example. It's not exactly perfect or easy to execute sustainability in every facet. So like shipping is something we're still working on. Like the labor charges and all of that, we're also focusing on, just in the same way as we are focusing on the materials.
Elizabeth, I am so excited about your business. I think it's so cool. And with companies like Reformation taking Storm, this is even better. I guess one of the questions I have is, it seems like your background is a very strong bird in hand, but could you give us an example of maybe how you've used customer discovery or turned lemons into lemonade?
Yes. So, the customer that I had been designing for before was older, a luxury customer, averages in her 40s or 50s. And through customer discovery, I actually, discovered that like the need for this skews a lot younger. It's something that like I hadn't been exposed to before, this like millennial Gen Z focus. And it kind of presented a lot of new exciting opportunities of like, sort of like getting in on this movement and kind of like grabbing hold and following that. And that is why we've kind of accelerated so quickly. This is only like 6 months old. And we have been able to accelerate to try and like kind of hit this like window of opportunity.
Awesome.
I could go on about lemonade too, but I know we're
Does-
limited.
Y'all can jump in if you have other questions.
Is this a new type of idea? It seems like it could have been around for a while, but is there something unique about this model where you buy unused fabrics?
It is something that could have existed for sure. I think that because existing brands need to make so many multiples in so many different sizes of all their garments in order to do the wholesale model, it's not something that has been possible to buy smaller amounts and focus in on like these unique and specialty type items. That's not to say that it couldn't exist elsewhere, but by starting from this model, we're able to like execute it kind of quicker and more thoroughly than like a larger existing brand.
Yeah.
Can I go back and ask one more question around the wholesale versus direct to consumer model? Because it's such a different go-to-market. It's such a different, literally everything about it. Where are you going to start? If you were going to put 80% of your time or resources, would it be towards DTC and the on-demand production, or would it be towards kind of 3 to 5 user-tested designs that you're then going to try to wholesale? How are you thinking about really where you're going to put the efforts there?
Oh, DTC, absolutely. There are some exciting ideas of partnering with some like pop-up shops and things in the future, but we are not looking for wholesale because within like the projection model to hit the wholesale market, there is such an inherent waste that it's like kind of counterproductive to the mission that we're driving towards.
Okay.
How are you approaching that go-to-market strategy direct to consumer? Sorry, I think time might be up.
Nope, steal that question. I want to hear that too.
Yeah.
MJ,
And
we're
I-
taking one more. Yes, you got it.
Okay, so we're first producing 3 styles this spring. We're then producing 10, and we are doing kind of a launch package to be put in front of like, you know, the fashion market, which is like our niche kind of informed customer. And we will be like, we are launching on our own e-commerce platform and then promoting through like organic social videos and content.
Okay, that'll be it then. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
And next we have coming in Daniel. And Madeline has shared with me that we have quite a few. How many do we have on YouTube live stream?
43.
Wow.
Hi, everyone.
It must be Brian's jokes.
Yeah.
All right, I am letting Daniel in.
And Daniel's on his way. There he is.
Hey, good afternoon. How's everyone doing?
Good, good. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. All right. So welcome, Daniel. Quick introduction here. You have the links. I hope you took a look at them. Brian, Aris, and Meg are our judges, all Darden alums who are currently running their own businesses. And you have 1 minute to give your pitch, and then we'll jump into Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you for the time. So I want you to think about a kid that you care about and want to succeed. If you could have that kid read more in life or less, which would it be? I'd argue more because you recognize a clear correlation with students' reading ability, academic achievement, high school graduation, and college preparedness. Actually, the world's largest K-12 study just showed the difference between students who met state benchmarks and those who didn't was just 6 minutes of reading per day. It's because of that, as a teacher, I was enthusiastic about my students' reading, and I'm still excited today. The Million-Word Challenge is an engaging application that uses students' intrinsic competitive nature as a way to motivate them to read 1 million words by the end of every school year. We all know when you gamify and quantify something, we achieve more. It is no different with words. I want every kid everywhere reading more, and I'm confident this app will do it.
Daniel, that was the best airplane pitch we've gotten so far. So very good work there. I love this idea. I'm right now the business model. Can you start us out on how you are going to fund this? Is this supposed to be a nonprofit? Are you going to look for grants? What's the overarching model to push this out?
Yeah, so I'll go into what I thought, but right now in the moment, I'm wondering if we could sell all those hats behind you on eBay, we'll be able to fund this app.
Truly priceless, truly priceless. I agree. Thank you. Buttering me up works, Daniel. So this is really going well for you so far, but please continue.
Yeah, so I think thinking about this long-term play, I think as we gain users, there's value in this as a whole, but there are probably three models to make money. So first is a freemium and premium model. My goal as a whole is to educate and empower kids in urban and underserved communities, but I recognize that there are going to be a bunch of parents in other communities that would want to pay to be able to track their students' reading success, especially now with COVID. Think of how many kids are sitting at home. If you were a parent and you were able to see like how many words your kids read that day, you saw whether or not they were passing a book test, it even gave you questions to have dialogue with your kids, you would pay for that model. The other thing is a sponsorship partner, a sponsorship or a partnership. When you look at major companies, so this still happens today, it's been going on for years. You know, there are book clubs or book events, book in the bag they do in elementary school, where a local company like Pizza Hut or Domino's, they'll give you like a coupon book. And every time a kid reads, you can then go over there to get that pizza or whatever it might be. And then the last model would just be affiliate revenue streams. So let's say you're reading the book, I'm getting a bunch of data on what you like. I can then start making recommendations. I think that's the smaller scale. That wouldn't be where I wanted to grow, but certainly an option.
Cool.
Can you remind us a little bit of your traction to date and how you were able to build this piece of technology as a teacher?
Yeah, great question, Meg. So traction today, we'll back up. First, recognizing I was a teacher, I got a master's in education, and then I worked in the elite space of higher education where I actually saw those kids were all reading, and there was an issue here that I wanted to correct for underserved communities. But when I first got involved with the e-cup in the first competition, I said, I'm going to build out an app, and then that's what I did. So as a teacher, especially as an English teacher, I wasn't I wasn't a technology savvy entrepreneur, but I read a lot of books and I teach myself things. So I use Glide apps. It's up and running right now. If you go to the millionwordcampaign.com, you'll see a whole array of hundreds of books that I inputted myself. I recognize down the line that might be a bottleneck. That is something down the line. Yeah, so that's what I'm using as of now. The benefit of the $5,000 really is I want to create a native app. Meg, I know you got a lot of experience in that. I want something that's truly on the App Store or available via Google, and I need to switch from a traditional sort of web-based app to truly something that's native.
Great.
And then, sorry, the traction comment as well. What's your traction to date here? Both, I know you had great success offline, if you will, with kind of real life here, but what's the traction to date online here?
Yeah, so double-digit users. I've had the website up for 2.5 weeks, so I'm working through this in a Darden class as of right now. So every day, I could say we have year-over-year growth, but
that's what that
been,
exactly
18
yes.
days. Yeah, but when the three of you sign up, that will put us into like mid double digits.
Can you give us an example? Sorry, I'm stealing all the questions.
Oh, good. You're good, Meg.
Can you give us an example of when like something went wrong and it turned out to be for the better?
Yeah, so I think reflecting on my time in the classroom, something that's pretty pivotal is, so you always want stretch goals in anything in life. You want to be pushed so you could grow. And what I realized with students specifically, if that first book was actually too difficult, if it really surpassed their current reading level, what happens is they started the book and then immediately they just felt dejected. They said, maybe this isn't for me. So what I did to pivot was always ensure my students were taking reading tests to really baseline assess where are like the books in your level. So you could be stretched intellectually, but you're gonna sort of find success in this. And I think that's what the app will do. Before a kid starts reading with us, we're going to establish where their reading level is. We're going to recommend books because I want those easy, quick wins off the bat as we sort of move into the broader goal and expanding literacy all around for all kiddos.
To that end, how do you solve the hurdle of access to books, right? While the app may be free to the kid, if you recommend a book, there's still access to that book. What's your plan to sort of address that then further hurdle?
Yeah, Brian, if I could figure that hurdle out, I think the whole world is going to change and we're all going to be kinder, more supportive human beings. So that is a hurdle far, far down the line. But I think on baseline, right, I'll have links to local libraries. I go to libraries all the time. Myself as a teacher, I pack my room full of books, but every school does have a library to begin with. I think before we get to the hurdle of changing just books throughout the world, right, what I'm also hoping to do is start to link to articles. So as a teacher, I always share a Times article or a Washington Post article with a student. So if they're reading through the app, we'll be able to track words through that. But I do appreciate the broader goals. Your mind's where mine is.
Okay, great.
No questions for me. I think it's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. If you're not going to ask something, I may just ask something for you. Why don't you have a hat collection in the back?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
It very well could be here. I got a bed. Does that work?
No, listen, the panel walls are selling it all. Those look great. Don't worry about hats. That's all that matters. But I'd love to see some books behind you. When you get on my app, let me know which is the first book you read.
I will.
Awesome.
Well, NJ, I know you're running a little late on time, so I'm going to give 30 seconds back to all my wonderful fellow contestants. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and have a great day.
Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
Take care.
Okay. We have up next, Curate Mental Health.
All right, I'm letting Eric in now.
And if any of our judges need a break, please let us know. But after Eric, can you hear us? We need you to unmute.
Unmute. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome, Eric. We're going to give you 1 minute to do your elevator pitch. And then we're going to jump into Q&A. The judges here are Meg, Aries, and Brian, all Darden alums who are currently running their own companies.
Okay, great.
So jump right in.
Okay, great. Lovely to meet everyone. So my name is Eric Frost. My teammate Marina Petty couldn't be here today, but we are representing Curate Mental Health. And as all of you probably know, access to mental health is a huge problem in this country. I think it probably goes without saying that COVID has made that worse. But even before COVID, 43% of people with a mental illness were not in treatment. 60% of counties in the United States don't have a single registered psychiatrist. So Curate aims to solve these problems with a scalable online solution. So Curate will provide structured evidence-based content, things like cognitive behavioral therapy. The platform will also include validated instruments to show improvement. Customers can work through these modules either on their own or with their existing therapist. And I think where Curate's really going to separate from some of the other competitors kind of in this space is that a lot of the other companies out there sort of offer vague things like mindfulness or meditation, whereas Curate is going to be a really regimented, specific sort of therapeutic content. So with that, I'll kind of open it up to questions and just say thank you to all the previous presenters. Everyone's been great today.
Awesome. Thanks for your presentation. So my first question, I think you mentioned that you're approaching both the going to therapists and marketing it to the business side, but also directly to consumers who might need that kind of therapy. So how are you thinking about your go-to-market strategy on the consumer side?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So you probably saw this in my initial presentation, but I kind of did gather some data from both providers and from clients. I think there's a huge demand on both sides. I got a little bit more pushback sort of from my colleagues. For context, right, so I'm a psychiatrist. I talked mostly to other psychiatrists, and they were saying like, well, what if they're too high risk, or what if, they don't really get it, or what if they're not kind of doing it right? And I think that sort of shifted my thinking more towards direct to consumer. But I think approaching both avenues is probably the way to go initially.
What stage are you in right now within the sort of overall project? I think I can understand a lot of the work that you've done around kind of going to therapists, going to consumers here, but what sort of beyond that stage have you been creating the actual content itself? Are you testing the actual content? So where is the stage of the business right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are very much in the process of building the content, right? So there are, like I mentioned, the plan is to have this whole suite of different therapies. We're working on just the first one right now, which would be CBT. It's kind of alphabet soup. I realize that, but so there's CBT, DBT, ACT, all these other kinds of therapies. One thing that sort of evolved about our strategy, one of my classmates in the executive program, Stephen Beaudois, is working with a really cool platform where sort of celebrities, artists can provide content. And that sort of inspired me even this week to look at having some of the sort of quote unquote celebrities of therapy to sort of help us to generate the content. I think that would be really terrific and give us a lot of credibility with therapists and providers. So again, not to belabor you with some of this jargon, but so like, CBT was invented by Aaron Beck. He runs the Beck Institute. Judith Beck is his daughter who now runs it and is sort of the godmother, if you can call it that, of CBT. And so if we could approach people like that to help generate the content, I think that's part of the strategy. So short answer, we're still working on the content.
Cool. And then you talked about differentiation will be between kind of generic content versus very specific content in your initial pitch here. Can you go a little bit deeper on how it's fundamentally different from either an existing DTC psychotherapy or psychology kind of application? What really is that? How are you going to really kind of accentuate that difference?
Yeah, I think, to sort of give a specific example, so Calm, right? If you ever heard of Calm, it's like $60 a year. It's available in the App Store. I've used it myself. It's nice, right? It's like 10 to 15 minutes of sort of, being present and feeling your body and that kind of thing. What I'm talking about where it would be different is when we talk about CBT, you're, kind of getting down to brass tacks and you're documenting your feelings, your thoughts every day. You're learning to identify negative thought patterns and specifically how to break them. It's a lot more like school. It's going to be a lot more like work. Like I see this more as, you see your personal trainer, which is maybe your in-person therapist, but then these are the real heavy lifting exercises you're going to do through the week to get that improvement.
Thanks.
Besides the survey, is there any other information that you've gained that's going to show why the customers are interested?
Honestly, it's mostly my anecdotal experience being a psychiatrist for 10 years that there's just like such an overwhelming demand. I realize this is kind of a crowded space, but I mentioned in there's 3 or 4 big startups that had big, rounds this year. But, when psychiatrists who I know personally are charging $600 an hour and people are still lining up at the door to pay for it, I think that the demand is just overwhelming. And I think there's a ton of space for this kind of thing.
Thanks.
Sure.
The mission of the business is incredible. How are you going, like from a price point perspective, how are you going to live out that mission?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think, I'm very interested in the subscription model. Like I like seeing this as just like a monthly fee, kind of like Netflix, but I do want to make it really accessible, but I want to communicate with my pricing that this isn't just Netflix, right? This isn't just, binging whatever Bridgerton, I guess that's what's big now, which is a whole nother story. But so I think I want to price it higher than that, like $19.99, which is Netflix. So something in the $40 to $50 a month range, where again, you're still a fraction of the cost of an in-person therapist. I know I'm harping on these numbers, but for a psychiatrist, $400 to $600 is kind of the going rate for a therapist, maybe $125 to $250 per session. So that's still $1,000 a month if you're seeing them 4 times a month, right? So I think it's still, an extremely compelling value even at that $40 price point. Didn't expect the Bridgerton reference. I didn't expect to drop that.
Well, we have time for one more question, but if we don't have any more questions, we can move along.
Yeah, I think Eric, the only question that I've got here in the theme of the crazy quilt here, you obviously bring the psychiatrist kind of background here. As you think about coding, as you think about actually building, not just the content, but the application and delivery system, where is that going to come from? How are you thinking about that right now?
Yeah, so some of it I've kind of DIY'd using Wix and some of the no-code websites. My classmates have been super helpful with that. But then, also I think I mentioned my brother is involved in the project. He's a computer science undergraduate who's been in educational software for 15 years, an MBA also. So I think he's, some of those kind of relationships I can leverage.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, well then we're going to have to say goodbye. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, team, we are moving along here. We're barely behind, which is amazing. You guys ready for the next one? Okay, we'll just keep going then.
All right, I'm letting Jeremy in.
Oh, there's Jeremy. Hello, Jeremy. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
All right. We can. Okay,
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. You've got your on-brand background there.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to let you start with your 1-minute pitch, and then we'll jump into Q&A. We have our judges here, Meg, Aris, and Brian, all Darden alums, all running their own companies.
Very nice to see you all. Yeah, so I'm Jeremy, the founder of Touchpoint, a relationship management solution for students. Did you know that 85% of students experience anxiety around career networking? Relationship management, it's a $42 billion market in the US, but we still see students and others using spreadsheets to track networking and relationships. Spreadsheets are awful. They're unstructured, all manual entry, no integration, not mobile friendly. Spreadsheets inflict almost as much pain as they fix. Touchpoint is making the relationship management experience better for students by offering a mobile-friendly, organized experience that integrates with school data. So it's like Salesforce and Handshake had a baby. Our vision is to dominate the market for personal relationship management, starting with students. We have already had around 175 MBA students sign up to try Touchpoint, and we learned that students want structure. They don't like double entering data. They end up happier when they start networking earlier. And Touchpoint helps with all of that. Now, I'm very happy and excited to answer your questions.
Can you walk us through, like very specifically, like the user experience and how somebody would gain value from that?
Sure. So I've actually made several changes to that even recently up through the last week. Improving the onboarding process, and that was actually based on some user feedback. So currently, when you log into the app, you hit a welcome screen, and you have the option to register a code with your school that gives you access to some of that school data that I was talking about, and then it will lead you through a job search flow. If for many students, that's what they want to do when they're coming to get an MBA, and what that does is it first has a few screens where you would do kind of a self-evaluation or self-reflection to figure out what you want to do and what your strengths are. But then it helps you to build a target list of companies, shows you who at the school has graduated and gone to those companies in the last few years, and allows you to start connecting with those students.
Got it.
Can you remind us what bird in hand that you have in building this business?
Yeah, so I think for me, it really came down to like three things. My background working with CRMs and interning with Outlook, which showed me kind of what relationship management should look like, and also kind of the whole product development process and, through launching and feedback loop. That's all what I did at my internship at Outlook. But then also, I used cheap tools for design, prototyping, and no code. that helped me get to an MVP. Those tools were like PowerPoint and InVision and Glide apps. And then I think probably the biggest bird in hand that I have is Darden. Darden gave me access to 680 current students who are potential users. Darden staff that wouldn't have talked to me if I wasn't a student. And also Darden programming like CDY, which is that student onboarding program. And also workshops like the 2-hour job search workshop, which they just started doing this year.
Awesome.
Hey, Jeremy, it seems like you've got a potential kind of conflict between customer and user, right? As far as who buys or pays for the platform, but who uses the platform between employers and career services departments and students themselves. Do you see those as potentially different? And how do you reconcile the sort of needs between the underlying user base of students and potentially who would ultimately pay for this, whether it was schools or employers?
It's a great question. Yeah, I absolutely recognize the difference between end users and the potential customer, which in this case would be the school. I guess what I've noticed is that there's a lot of overlap between the needs of the students and the needs of the school. And so it's almost like hitting two birds with one stone a little bit. For example, only a third of MBAs indicate that they're happy with their recruiting experience. And MBAs are twice as likely to be happy if they start the recruiting process earlier. So if I can help students do that, they'll be better off. But those are also pain points for the school. The school has trouble giving access to students before they come to campus. The school wants more interaction between students and alumni. Students will report better, if they if they leave campus happier and feel that support. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. I think that's really good. And going back to Ari's question around kind of the UX there, you talked about a little bit in your write-up and presentation, the need to integrate, right? That students don't want to be filling this out and duplicating and replicating this. You also talked about the idea of querying a database of alums. How do you think about that? What's sort of proprietary within your application as far as net new or input versus what you would plan on pulling in? How do you think about the different data sources there and what to integrate with?
Yeah, so I've implemented 2 different data sources recently in the last couple of weeks that I'm testing with users now. One is the alumni directory, which shows like the outcomes of students that have graduated in the last year or two. The other is a company database of employers that have recently graduated or recently hired students from Darden. And I think so far those, the way it works is, now you can just click on a company and add it to your list, or click on a person and add it, in your app to manage that relationship, as opposed to typing in the names and typing in the emails and things like that. So I've gotten really positive feedback on that so far.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where do you see this going beyond career relationship management, or do you?
Well, I think it goes beyond students for sure. Especially thinking about alumni. You should all try Touchpoint. You all are making relationships. I mean, as entrepreneurs, you're effectuating and building relationships all the time. And the way it works in my app is you can make different lists of people and organize people different ways. And it just makes it easier to know where stuff is and to find those people and to figure out who you've talked to recently and whatnot. So I definitely see a path forward, stretching from maybe the student arena into the alumni and into executives that are in client service businesses and have a need for strong relationship management support.
I'm going to stretch you a little bit here, Jeremy, because I thought that was a really good answer. As you think about this almost as a personal CRM, right? How are you going to differentiate from, and all you talked about spreadsheets, I agree with that, but something like Airtable, right? What's the real difference here? How are you driving a proprietary difference? Is it that data sources? Is it the integrations? What's that kind of real differentiation between something that would have a broader use effectuated for this purpose?
Yeah, so I mean, Airtable specifically, the UX is going to be way different. But also, I think I'm more interested in providing maybe like a curated or like plan structure. Like, whereas Airtable, it can be whatever you want it to be, just like a spreadsheet. There's like no structure. You make it whatever you want. What I'm trying to do is provide a simple structure that makes sense for relationship management. Even CRMs like Salesforce aren't doing it the way that I do it because they're built for big sales teams, right? And so just having a simple structure like that, I think is really unique when you look at, that competition out there.
Cool.
Okay, we got to cut you off there. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
All right, good to see you.
All right, well, I'll have a good night. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
See you later.
See ya. Okay, we're moving on here to Binged.
Binge. We have Evan, Alexa, and Jason.
Okay, Team Binge coming our way. Oh, Megan snuck in there. What? Okay. All right, welcome Team Binge. You guys are all muted. Can you hear us?
Yep. All good.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So we have our judges here, Ari, Smeg, and Brian, who are all running their own companies. And what we're going to do is have you do a 1-minute pitch. I guess Evan's going to do that because he's unmuted, right? And then we're going to do some Q&A. So go ahead, Evan.
Awesome. Thanks. Hi all, my name is Evan Kirsch, and I'm here with my partners Jason Kalem and Alexa Rothborth. I'd like to share with you Binged, Streaming Made Social. Too often, people today find themselves asking their friends and family the same question. Do you know any good shows to watch? Those who actually do know some good shows that they've watched have no effective means of keeping track of or sharing this information, often resorting to messy spreadsheets or the Notes app on their phone. Binged is a mobile application that solves both of these intertwined problems by facilitating the growing social component to binging a show. Binge allows those who regularly binge watch shows to easily track what shows they're watching and just as easily see what shows their friends are watching. Today, Binged is available on the Apple App Store and nearing the tail end of a soft launch to friends and family. We are excited to keep driving this new venture forward, making it fun and easy to track and find new shows with a little help from your friends. Thank you all for listening. I'd now like to open up the floor to any questions.
I'm going to try to make this easier for a dumb brain here. Is this if any one of the three of you has used Goodreads, is it similar but for streaming? Is it a social kind of connection with a universe of things that you can then follow people that you agree with from their taste? Can I simplify it that easily?
Yeah, I would say so. That's actually probably the best comparison that there is. Essentially, you could frame it as Goodread for TV shows.
Great. So help me out with the difference then of Binged versus IMDb. Is it the social component? Is it the discovery component? What's, if you were to say that versus sort of the largest seemingly entrenched kind of opportunity, what's the difference there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say certainly the social component is a big part, right? IMDb, from my best understanding, is essentially a resource to go to learn more about an existing show, right? Perhaps you could see what people are rating, what critics are saying, the cast, crew members, which is information readily available in Binged. However, sort of it's that social component to see what shows your friends are watching, coupled with the tracking component that are two things that IMDb does not really at least focus on.
Cool.
I saw your app on the App Store. I'm very impressed with the branding and that it's already live. I guess one of my questions would be, how are you planning on getting it out there on one hand? And then also, what kind of traction do you already have with your friends and family?
Yeah, so for getting it out there, we kind of have 3 different strategies. So the first one is focusing on getting like a devoted core group of users. So for that, we're going to use like Facebook groups that already have thousands of members that basically just talk about what shows they're watching through different streaming services. And then also there's like different Reddit forums with thousands of members that we're planning on advertising there. Also like organically right now, so we have 200 users, a lot of daily users, and a lot of them have been asking us when they can start sharing it with their friends. So obviously just letting them do that and posting on our own social medias. We have a bunch of different graphics ready. We have an Instagram ready. So soon we're going to start posting on all of those. And third, just through like different paid advertisings, like mostly on Facebook, Instagram, maybe TikTok, once it gets to that point.
I don't understand TikTok, but I think it is what the youngs are using right now. So I would recommend that also. Evan, you talked about kind of the information from IMDb plus social, plus I'm sure a number of other things here. What are you populating net new, and what can you pre-populate? I think you did talk about kind of the cost of the feeds being pretty expensive here. How are you thinking about sort of seeding this so that as you go out and acquire users, they're not landing on something that effectively is empty? How are you thinking about kind of matching that without spending a huge amount of money? And then farther down the line, how are you thinking about having kind of novel content beyond just the social pieces that would bring people back over and over and over again?
Right. So I guess just to clarify, when you say people coming up on empty, are you referring to empty show data or empty, say, an empty feed?
Show data specific,
Okay.
Very specifically that the universe of stuff to watch.
Right. So I think I can hand that off to Jason. He might be better equipped to talk about that. And then I'll circle back for the new content and talk a little bit about community groups and some ideas we have in the pipeline.
Yeah. So right now we're partially relying on an external database called TMDB. It's kind of similar to IMDb. It's more focused on shows. So we are using that right now for all the search results. And whenever you click on a show, we're pulling a lot of information. And then at the same time, our plan is to kind of work on and cultivate our database using our network of people. So they'll be able to edit shows and add shows to the list. So that's our current plan. But right now we are kind of relying on this alternate database. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And regarding, just to quickly touch upon generating our own content and having people coming back, we do plan on introducing some sort of, more engagement features. So I guess right off the bat, we will be collecting our own reviews, ratings, what people thought of the shows, the social dynamics there. We have information on who is watching a show and then who of their friends have watched it and are watching it. But we're also looking into gathering data and creating communities based on common interests, right? So people who like watching X type of show, and it's almost, be it a chat or be it a community or a forum, sort of generating more content that's unique to our app down the road.
Thanks.
What's stopping a bigger company from just adding this feature to their, like an Instagram or a Facebook? Do you see any risk from that? Like, Vine used to be a thing, and now you can get 8-second videos in other platforms.
Right. So I can take this one. I guess there are, there are features of bigger apps that, say on Facebook, right? You can ask for a recommendation. And there are other apps that are sort of for recommendations. However, there's no real, one source for specifically TV shows at this point, not even necessarily, movies, because that is something that there are perhaps some, like an IMDb or something. But for specifically TV shows, I don't really see a bigger competitor like Facebook or Instagram or something that's more general, ever wanting to, focus down on this one thing. And if you're looking at competitors like, say, Netflix or the streaming providers themselves, our advantage here is that we cover across all of them, whereas they'd be obviously limited to their own scope.
Interesting.
Can I ask a sort of esoteric question here? Why an LLC incorporated in New York? What was that decision?
The New York part or the LLC part, or both?
Both. They are separate questions, but I've strung them together. You can choose to answer one or either or both.
Right. Okay. So I guess for the LLC, from our research, right, and limited legal knowledge, that did seem like the most common course to incorporate an app in some way without exorbitant expenses, and seemed good for our partnership at the time. New York, that is the home state of two of our members, myself and Alexa. And granted, New York comes with its fair share of antiquated publication laws and all sorts of other things. So perhaps you could go to a state like Delaware, but I think the advantages of incorporating in your home state seem to outweigh any potential tax benefits or nuisances that might come down the road from being out of your home state.
Thank you.
All right, well, it looks like our time is up. Thank you all for your questions and for listening to all of us.
Great job, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess I was muted there. Okay. All right, well now, if you're ready, we have Megan, who slipped in there once already.
All right, I'll let her in.
Okay. Hey, Megan, you're back. Are you back? Oh,
We can't hear you.
Muted, muted,
We
muted,
can't hear
muted,
you.
muted, muted, muted.
Gosh, do I have to like put a quarter in a jar or something for that? It's a rookie move.
You're good. You're good. That was us. Okay, Megan, we're going to give you 1 minute to pitch. Your judges here are Meg, Aris, and Brian, all Darden alums and running their own businesses. So they're ready to hear your pitch and ready to ask some questions. So go ahead.
Sounds great. Thank you. It's wonderful to meet you all virtually. I'm Megan Nash, co-founder of Raina, and my best friend Katie and I founded Raina honestly because we were so frustrated with the available pubic hair grooming products that left us with hot wax burns, razor irritation, and painful ingrowns. We're not alone. Almost all women groom their pubic hair. Most of the time they DIY it, and 64% actually trim every time they go for the job. And that leaves just 10% satisfied with their current grooming routine. Now, our hypothesis is that a trimmer designed specifically for the woman's body and engineered to provide a tight trim will solve many of the pain points that we hear during customer discovery interviews. We've tested this hypothesis with over 200 survey responses and over 100 hours of customer discovery interviews, including interviews and prototyping feedback. Now, between this customer-centric approach and validation from medical professionals, we know we're on the right track, and we're moving forward to a CAD design for a 3D printed model for further customer feedback before moving to a functional prototype with a manufacturer. I'm so happy to be here today and look forward to answering all your questions about the process. Thank you.
How are you thinking about branding? I see companies like Billy just knocking it out of the park, and I'm curious like how important that is in this experience.
Yeah, I think it will be critical. And you've picked one of my favorite examples with Billy. I think they've really nailed the tone, especially for millennials and Gen Z. For maybe Brian and Aries don't know, Billy's a razor for women, direct to consumer. They're selling in Target right now. And they've caught a lot of press attention, not only because they're successful, but they're one of the only companies that has actually shown body hair on women in ads, which I feel like is kind of the next wave. You know, we saw Aerie of American Eagle not retouching their photos, showing all sorts of models of different body sizes. And I feel like this is the next wave. And that'll definitely be important for Raina as well, to get the marketing and the tone right. For me, what that sounds like is we want to give you the tools to groom your pubic hair however you want to. Most of the tools on the market now force you into a hair removal box. Things like waxing, shaving, epilators, even chemical dissolvers like Nair are all removing hair. But from my customer discovery interviews, most women actually want to have some hair, or at least have the option to, but there's no tool to help them do that. There's no trimmer on the market that really meets their needs. So they're turning to things like kitchen scissors or nail clippers or their partner's beard trimmers. Those are all real examples from our research to try to get the job done, and it's not working. Only 10% are satisfied.
What's so kind of similar around branding. What's go-to-market? Because I think you're testing really, really well in prototyping. CAD designing for a 3D printed model is great, but then full design and full launch is a really high upfront fixed cost. How are you thinking about doing that? And to what extent are you thinking about the crazy quilt idea of partnerships, or how are you going to get that expertise to come in?
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. That's been on the front of my mind, my co-founders' minds for sure. Let me start with the crazy quilt. So I haven't launched a direct-to-consumer personal care brand before, neither have my co-founders. So we're really looking for expert advice to help fill these gaps. And we found it. We've actually, we're being mentored by the former head of growth and investor of Manscaped, Ben Acott, and that's been really valuable because he's really imparted the importance of marketing, like Meg mentioned, and the value in a direct-to-consumer business model, especially one that goes through Kickstarter, so that we can get funding upfront to help pay for those enormous fixed costs, like you alluded to, Brian, in the manufacturing process.
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
Please.
Okay, so this seems like a great marketing opportunity. We're talking, a lot of questions revolve around marketing. I think that's sort of, absolutely like home run for marketing. But I was wondering, is there really what is the specific problem? Because you keep mentioning that they're dissatisfied, but is there a specific thing that they're actually like, I just keep nicking myself? Or
yes,
what is the specific problem and how does the product specifically address that?
Yes, thanks for asking. The real enemy here are ingrown hairs. It comes up in, every woman I talk to, that's like the bane of her existence when we're talking about pubic hair grooming, because most of the tools on the market now force you into hair removal that breaks the surface of the skin and introduces opportunity for infection. And the way that it, I won't bore you with the details, but if we're looking at a microscope at the way that the hair is being cut by a razor, it's encouraged to grow back under the skin, resulting in a really painful ingrown, compounded by an infection because many women are using a leg razor on their vulva and introducing all new sources of bacteria. So that's why we're really intentional with a trimmer, just trimming the hair, not removing it. This is our hypothesis that was validated by medical professionals, that if we can provide a tool that's just trimming the hair and cuts it in such a way that the hair isn't going to grow back on itself, we'll eliminate this ingrown, the major pain point that customers identify.
Is that technology already out there? I feel like I've seen many commercials about beard trimmers and things like that, or just general for men and shaving. That's like, oh, we cuts it in the right way, every time.
Mm-hmm. And similar technology exists for women. It's just done very, very poorly. I've personally tested over a dozen pubic hair trimmers and talked to many other women that have tried the same ones and different ones, and it comes up again and again. Either the quality is really poor, it feels flimsy, it feels really plasticky, it's not the experience I'm looking for, or it's not durable. This thing breaks within a month and I have to throw it away. I feel bad from a sustainability standpoint. Or it's just not built for me. I'm using my partner's Manscaped trimmer, I'm using my partner's beard trimmer, and it's too bulky, I can't get it in the right places. And those are exactly the things that we're innovating in with our design. We're working with a UVA undergrad engineer, affordable loss, to really tackle these things and find the right ergonomic handle so that a woman can hold it in multiple different ways, that they can reach into these hard to access areas that you just can't get to with products on the market now.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
I think we might have 1 minute left. So I have a question around lemons into lemonade. Was there a discovery that you found in your consumer research that you weren't expecting, and how did you handle it?
Yeah, honestly, when my co-founders and I were originally workshopping this and really taking this idea seriously, we had thought that the trimmer would be a marketing play, that it would be a rebranded, repackaged trimmer that we could buy on Alibaba or something, but repackaged for women. And the more we learned from customers, the more we realized that that is just not going to cut it. We need an actually innovative new design to meet customers where they are and solve those pain points for them. So that was the biggest pivot, and it happened early on. That really set us on the course we're on now. So
Madeline, I'm gonna steal 30 seconds that we got back from Daniel earlier. Megan, where do you go next? Right? Are you just going to have it? Are you going to be a single product company, or does this build, or what's that longer term plan here?
No, we're much too ambitious for that. And we have too many problems to solve. So first up, trimmer, MVP, but women also need exfoliators for those ingrowns if they're still going to be shaving in addition to trimming. They're going to need some pubic hair oils to soften the hairs before they trim. They're going to need some moisturizers. So I see this as a whole suite of products that complement the pubic hair grooming process. So even though our flagship product will be the Reina trimmer, it'll be surrounded by complementary products later down the line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Megan.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you all so much.
All right. Bye. Okay, this is going fast. We're down to our last two we have in the waiting room, the team from Transfoam. And if you guys are ready, we'll let them in.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Hello, welcome Team Transfoam. Good to see you again, Alec, Simone, and Kobe. Let me see, you guys can hear us, I take it. It looks like Alec is still muted. Kobe's unmuted.
I was a bit confused there. I actually had YouTube running in the background, so I was
Yes, it's like turn off your television.
good thing I didn't unmute. Would have got a whole lot of reverb there.
Okay, you guys have 1 minute to pitch. And if you've been listening, then you know our three judges here, Brian, Aris, and Meg. We'll let you get started and then go right into the Q&A.
All right. Well, hi, my name is Simone Gannett, and I am a co-founder and the lead biologist of Transfoam. And at Transfoam, we're using synthetic biology to tackle plastic pollution. Our proprietary bioprocess uses waste feedstock to produce biodegradable plastic more scalably and sustainably than current methods, at no extra cost to the consumer. The biodegradable plastics market has grown so quickly in the last few years that manufacturers are having trouble keeping up with demand. Polyhydroxybutyrate, otherwise known as PHB, has properties just like the petroplastics we use every day in single-use products, except for it is fully biodegradable. And so, by using waste plastic as our feedstock to manufacture PHB, we are able to reduce the carbon footprint of PHB production by up to 75%. We've recently begun testing our first prototype to provide data for the scale-up of our bioprocess into a benchtop fermenter in the coming months. Thank you, and we look forward to your questions.
We got question one, because I'm the stupidest person here. You guys are way too smart for at least one of the judges, which is me.
I was going to say the same thing.
Same here.
Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Talk to me about the issue around manufacturing capacity. Is that so is what you guys are doing is creating the raw materials that allows for greater manufacturing scale, or is it some sort of an output-based issue? What is the really nail that pain point here? You're giving us the ability to create the raw material to have more of the replacement. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's correct. So the infrastructure to produce PHB exists. However, the infrastructure was far more expansive about 10 years ago. Several of the manufacturers that were in business and manufacturing actually went out of business for reasons that we won't get into, but unrelated to production capacity or demand. In fact, there is now a surplus in demand in the market for PHB. So the raw material itself is in high demand to go ahead and make products and replace the petroplastics that we use every day. For example, the packaging on this gum wrapper here. However, the underlying technology to produce the PHB needs improvement. It needs to be more scalable in itself. And so that's the improvement we're making, with the added factor of ultimately having a more sustainable end product.
And Alec, I'm going to push you on this because this is a business plan competition.
Yes, sir.
It does matter why the previous businesses went out of business. So give me Give me the one or two key reasons that maybe 10 years ago this wasn't the right thing, but now it is.
Yeah, great point. Well, it simply comes down to awareness of sustainability. So 10 years ago, the demand and that consumer awareness didn't exist, nor was there any mounting regulatory pressure. There were threats of plastic bans, but more bans on plastic bag bans existed than did the bans themselves. So this has changed rapidly in as little as the last 2 years, really. And so that's the first component of it. However, there were internal issues with both companies. So Metabolics is name brand that you'll hear, and they went out of business as a result of those issues, as well as internal friction with a couple of the people who actually took away with the intellectual property and brought it to another company. So that's one issue. And the other is actually extortion. So I get too much into it. I don't know much more than that, but 80% of the company was seized by the Italian government. So
we'll go offline, non-YouTube for that one, because I do want to hear that.
Sounds
story.
good.
Last question that I had that I just couldn't really follow in your presentation. You said you have some LOIs in place right now. Are those with customers? Are those with sponsors? Are those like research? Like, who is putting the LOIs in place, and kind of what are, just very high level, what are the LOIs in place for?
Yeah, so we've got one research LOI and two supplier LOIs. So we would be the supplier, that is. So the research one is to create novel blends with our PHB. So PHB itself is a biopolymer, but it can be used in conjunction with others to improve their performance, namely their biodegradability, because it's a more biodegradable material. It degrades faster, which is a really nice property to have. The other two, and I'll kind of separate them a little bit, are from two pretty big name producers. One is Good Natured Products. They're a publicly traded company in Canada. And the other one is Biopack, who is Australia's leader in consumer food service goods. So the Good Natured Products order is for over $4 million in PHB. So that's going to be a big milestone of ours to achieve, surely because of the capacity, but it shows the demand that exists, as well as the kind of key to our business model, and that it's really emphasized on sole providership. So you form a single or two sales partnerships, and you've got your entire product line covered. You don't have to worry about extensive customer acquisition. The other, just to touch upon gently, Biopack is a little bit of a stretch goal. They'd like it at a little bit cheaper than we can currently offer. However, that's something that we'd like to achieve to further contribute to the accessibility of this material on the market in the future.
Great, thanks.
Just to kind of understand what birds you have in hand, how did you guys go about securing those letters of intent?
Yeah, so we placed an immense emphasis on customer discovery. We were part of the ICAP program in July of last year, and so that really kickstarted us on that path. At this point, I think we've spoken to 50 or 60 industry contacts, decision makers at companies in the bioplastics industry who have been able to teach us an immense amount. And then as we continue to build relationships with them and have more frequent conversations, we realized that the letters of intent would be really helpful to not only support our business, but support their business development goals as well, because it would formalize that desire for them to acquire this material. Again, they currently can't get their hands on it in such capacity. So that's the first. And then to answer your question about bird in hand, Simone, Kobe, and I each have very complementary skills in entrepreneurship, synthetic biology, and chemical engineering, which are really the three main facets of the startup. And in addition to that, we're joined by two UVA professors, Dr. Kosminski and Dr. Kester, who have specialized themselves in synthetic biology and nanotechnology, but also then the commercialization of these technologies through licensing agreements and founding their own companies. So, so we've got the bird in hand in that sense, as well as the LOIs through the customer discovery and relationships that we're continuing to build.
Great.
Any issues here, guys? And talk to me a little bit about the licensing of commercial technologies that's coming. I know you're working with professors right now. How are you navigating? How are you dealing with, or are you even necessarily dealing with the idea of licensing or commercializing technology that the university could potentially say is internally developed research university. Have you started down that path yet?
Yeah, we've got a pretty robust intellectual property plan. So as undergraduates, we do have an advantage there that it is our intellectual property. However, we did decide to go ahead and have filed for our provisional patent with the university, which is no entrepreneurship. In conversations, we haven't finalized any agreements yet, but plan to have exclusive rights to the licensing of our technology when we go full time in the summer. And then, of course, that entails filing the full patent. Filing date's August 6th of this year. I see time's up. Thank you, MJ. And thank you everyone for your questions as well. It was a pleasure meeting you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Madeline keeps us on track here.
I'm just really good at ignoring Madeline, so we can still, it's sort of a balance. It's sort of a balance.
Okay, we are all ready to our last presentation. We're only 2 minutes behind schedule. That's shocking.
That's very good.
Yeah. Well, we did have a buffer built in.
Yes, we did.
We built in a buffer. Okay, so let's go. Let's invite Alex into the Zoom.
All right, here he comes.
Alex is on his way.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hey Alex, have you been watching along?
Yes, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
All right. Okay, so we don't have to introduce the judges. You know the plan, 1 minute pitch, and then we'll move into questions.
Awesome, cool. Well, hi, I'm Alex Zaretta and the founder of Xalence. So, you all know the phrase, your network is your net worth, social capital for the big brain people out there. And it's currently highly correlated with professional success. And in the future, as AI becomes more integrated into our lives, who you know and how well you know them will be even more important than what you know. 90% of people hate networking, reaching out and meeting strangers who you have no relationship to. The other small portion of the population thrive on it, the ability to discover the hidden strengths of new people, hear their stories, and most of all, be able to see the connection between them and other people they already know. This smaller portion of the population are the connectors, and they are the medium through which we organically grow our social capital. So Xalence is a platform for professionals to more meaningfully grow their networks and to enable connectors to better do what they do already, provide quality, relevant meetings for people they already know. Their reputation and their endorsement of others they know allow for this filtering. The rest of us benefit with a better way to grow our network. So using effectual principles, I've co-created Xalence, and I intend to go full-time upon graduation in 3 months in order to empower people all over the world to create and maintain meaningful connections.
Congrats, Alex, on going full-time here. That is really putting your money where your mouth is. What is so one of the things that I kind of missed, because I understand a lot of the value proposition here broadly, but for two people to give up, because what you're buying here is time on both sides. You're buying 30 minutes or an hour, or however that is. What are you selling though, right? So how are you getting each side of the connectees, as you refer to them? What's the sale there? How do you get both sides to sort of match their how do you sell each side that ability that my 30 minutes or my hour is going to be worth it both ways?
So you're saying when a connector says you guys should meet? You
guys should meet, exactly. Is that on the connector? Is that the idea? Is the connector is the one basically giving each side that value?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It might be helpful to contrast this with another platform that's out there that actually made me want to do this. Lunch Club, very, very popular platform. Basically, they talk about curating the connection together based on like, hey, you're into this, like you guys should meet. There's no accountability there. And most people actually don't stay on the platform longer than 3 or 4 meetings. And I think this is my hypothesis, which has been proven out through the MVP and the discovery interviews I've done, is that there's no accountability there. There's no relationship that you have with the AI doing the matching. And so the value there is your relationship and your trust with the person who's saying you guys should meet. And on the other side, if the connector makes a meeting or a connection that's not good and they continue doing that, they're going to lose all credibility on that platform. So I guess in a sense, like I'm trying to do digitally what we already do in an analog way.
So what then did the connectors get? You allude to it a little bit within a data platform or whatever, but what is that value driven for the connector?
Yeah, it's going to sound really strange because, like I said, most people are not like this. They get some sort of weird thrill, I said in the best way, out of the potential fruitfulness of every possible connection that they make. They also love to see the impact of their connections. So like right now, they have to rely on the person coming back and saying, oh, that was a great meeting. Or maybe they happen to run into them and ask them. But they're making so many meetings on a regular basis that it's hard for them to actually figure out what's going on. So they love doing this naturally. And so if they can become better at it and see the results of their efforts, that's been the biggest draw so far.
Last piece, because I want to stay on the same theme, and Meg and Aries, I promise I don't have questions after this. If I can sum this up, connectors unlocking value of their network for their network with the parentheses, but also for Zaylence, right? So
Oh, yeah.
help me understand why connectors and connectees are going to utilize Zaylence here, and by definition provide value into the third party Zaylence. What's the value creation tool here that would allow me to give some of that up versus simply doing it myself?
So in a sense, like they're doing it right now mainly via email. Like that's the most popular way that this is going on. So what you're saying is like, why would they use my third party platform? I think that I'm focusing on reducing the friction that happens between all that. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever done an email intro or been on the receiving end, which I'm guessing you have because you're successful entrepreneurs, right? There's a lot. There's like one that's the meetings aren't really all in the same place. You can't keep track of them. They're all over your email. And then for the connector, it's even worse. You don't even know which ones are in what status. In particular, what I'm doing with this pool system is that I'm trying to automate to to its furthest extent without losing authenticity what the connector is already doing. So in addition to making targeted intros, you would be making pools of people that's like, hey, I know a bunch of young entrepreneurs. So that was my first pool. You guys should meet at some point, but I'm not just going to give you the whole directory because you'll never meet. But I'm also not going to sit there and sort of like follow up with you guys one at a time. So this platform just like provides an easier way to grow these meaningful connections.
Thanks.
What's something that really, like a hypothesis you had that was wrong that surprised you, and what did you make of it?
All right, so this is kind of related to where I thought Brian was going with that last question, which is maybe a business model. I was thinking that connectors would be interested in the monetary component. Obviously, that's a touchy subject, but I wanted to basically make like a Patreon for these connectors that I see as creative artists. They're making these connections in the world that didn't exist before. And so if you could do it not on a commission basis, but on more of a patronage basis, that would be pretty awesome. And then connectors could like do that full time in the same way that YouTubers kind of do it full time. In my interviews, that wasn't a big draw. It was never about the money. Like even if they could get paid, it wouldn't be the big draw. So that was pretty surprising. And where I've gone and shifted with that is towards more of a freemium model where like I want this to be kind of a social network where like the normal person who's using this or the normal person trying to be a connector would be doing this for free. But if someone wants to be like an extreme power user, like we're going to charge money for that. So obviously that's still a hypothesis, but it's in line with the findings from the interviews so far.
Awesome.
You wrote that you had 28 active users. Is that enough from your perspective to gain valuable insights? If so, what is the breakdown? How many connectors versus connectees are on there, and what are the connectees saying about it? What do they like about it?
Yeah, so that number could be. What was that last part?
Why do they continue to use it?
So these numbers are just from the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I guess, at this point. And I've intentionally kept it very small. I put some viral mechanisms on there that like if I had opened it to everyone, it could have been bigger. But like I know, and I think Brian was also saying this, that like it is really about that experience that they're having on here. And so what I've been focusing on right now is mostly people that I know, and I brought on a few connectors to try to make that connectee experience as seamless and frictionless as possible, because we said that that's very valuable. And I'm just now starting to move and work with connectors to make sure that this is something that they want to use as well, translating that from the interview. So directly to answer your question, it's not enough to know, but I think I'm on the right track. And the way that I'm setting up my experiments moving forward will help me gain insight on that.
Got it.
Is and Matt, it's the last one, so I'm going to steal more time. It's just going to happen. Over the long term, Alex, do you see Lunch Club as your direct competitor, or would you move into a wider space into, say, the personal CRM space? Or, is there a broader application here, or is it really just extending those power users freemium model and kind of gaining that use case of continuing to use this over time?
That is a really good question, and I'm not just saying that as a phrase. But I don't know yet. There are three areas in which I could expand under this vision of creating and maintaining meaningful connections. Lunch Club is the one that's making those new connections. Something like Up Habit is one that's more about relationship management, and we get in the realm of where Jeremy's one of my great friends. So Touchpoint is there, and then the third one is Donut, if you guys have heard of that, which is more of a B2B one where companies buy it and then it'll help like make one-to-one Zoom connections for people. So I think that some sort of amalgamation or blend of 2 or 3 of those is going to be where I end up with this.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you guys. I've enjoyed this. Thank you so much. And looking forward to the results.
Thanks so much, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Alex.
Okay. Bye. All right. So Madeline has a plan.
Yes. I'm moving all the judges into the breakout room. And I guess we'll have everyone come back around 6:30 that's watching live. Or if students want to come back into the Zoom room, they are welcome to do that. They have the link, but I'm going to send the judges to the breakout room to deliberate.
So I'll see you there in a couple seconds, and I'll give you your marching orders.
Should have received it.
Are we all back? We're all back. And we have some people here with us.
Jason, what are the jerseys? What are the jerseys behind you? As a fellow sports background person, I was wondering this, but I didn't want to take up the time in our conversation.
Yeah, those are actually my jerseys from high school. I used to play.
Nice. Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll take a minute to let people back in from the YouTube world. I'm not sure everybody's going to join us. But I did want to share, before we announce the top 5, that Meg wanted to tell you that this doesn't matter. You want to share that, Meg?
Sure.
You want to nuance that message a little bit, Meg?
Yeah. Just a tiny bit. Obviously, all of your presentations were phenomenal, and the businesses that you're building are going to turn out to be incredible businesses if you keep after it. I lost this competition not once, but twice. It was very painful, but it literally has no bearing on your future success.
We lost something equivalent. It definitely was like a big, something in the auditorium at Darden, and we lost that one. And then we tried to do some angel stuff right afterwards, and they didn't like us either. They turned us down. Yeah, and then it makes things a lot harder if you don't have the money. But we were able to do it without any financing, and it really does not have any bearing on whether you're going to succeed or not.
Okay, and with that, we'll announce the top 5 that we have. And I do have to say, I've never had judges refuse to give me 5 and insist on giving me more. So it really was a very difficult decision. But in no particular order, the top 5 that will be in the money, $5,000 each, are Catone, Zalence, Raina, the Million Word Challenge, and Transfoam. Okay, so big, loud clapping going on here. If you can't all hear it there on YouTube live stream, it's very, very loud. But again, yeah, thank you very much for participating. We hope that you will all show up back for launch. And again, I'd like to invite back in particular our actual entrepreneurs who didn't win or didn't get into the incubator program, because it just proves if you really want to do it, you can. And the money does help you accomplish some stuff, but it isn't essential. And a couple of the judges are specifically going to follow up with some of you. Binge
team, I'm coming after you guys right after this call.
Yeah.
You guys did not finish in the top 5. I thought you guys were absolutely exceptional. Really unbelievable work from undergrads. I wanted to call that out. And Elizabeth, we're talking after this also, because if you're going after on demand, we need to connect. That was put at the end of your presentation. I thought that was really good.
And I know Aris wants to follow up with ABG as well.
Yeah. What's the best way to do that?
I'll share emails.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. And at this point, again, thank you everybody for participating, and we will we'll follow up with you. And if you want to get in touch with any of the judges, they are very happy to do that. And you can reach out to me and Madeline. And thank you, and have a good night.
Hey, MJ, one more question for the judges here, because I know that Meg, Aries, and I took a lot of notes as we went through everything. Oh. Do we want to get those over? How do we want to provide that commentary? Because I think we've got comments for every single team here. Again, everyone did like a ridiculously good job here. So I do want to make sure if there's value in that we can get those over as well.
Yeah, if you can share them with me and Madeline, we will get them out to the teams. Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations, everybody. Great work.